Jockey powerhouse Nelson Rodriguez, the smallest rider in the race, sprints to give Colombia its first win of the Tour at Val Thorens. In hot pursuit, the Italian Marco Pantani finishes third and climbs to a podium position in Paris. The stage left its scars though, more than half the field eliminated, so the rules were changed to let them back in. Overall, Indurain keeps his margins, but there's no rest for those thinking of second place on Sunday. The only British rider in the race now, Sean Yates, he's 67. Hello again. Well, gone are the mists now which greeted the riders on the top of Val Thorens. We've come off the mountain this morning down to the blue skies here above Moutiers. The riders now facing their third day in the Alps on a very tough stage in prospect. Now, many of you have been ringing in and asking us why the riders are snatching newspapers when they go over the top of these giant cols. Well, I can assure you it's not for a good read on the long descent back down to the valley. Before we go to the action today, let's join 7-time Tour rider Paul Sherwin to tell us more.
The reason why riders snatch newspapers at the top of the climb is to use as a windbreak on the downhill. As they ride up the mountain slopes, they sweat profusely, and their jerseys are wet from having had water poured over them. The temperature at the top of the mountains is often well below 10 degrees Celsius, so with speeds of up to 60 miles an hour on the descent, the chill factor lowers this even more. To decrease the chance of catching a chill or a chest infection, they'll grab one of the oldest insulators in the world, paper. At the end of a tough tour, with resistance to illness at its lowest, they have to use every precaution they can to look after their health.
Well, thanks, Paul. I guess we can expect more newspapers being delivered along the route today. The first challenge the riders will face comes after 57 kilometres. It's the Col de Saisy, and it takes them up to a peak of 1,633 metres. And then it's a long and undulating valley in warm weather today as they head out towards the first time climb for them up the Col de la Croix, which comes after 129 kilometres and is being climbed for the very first time by the Tour de France. Then comes a descent into the valley of the Grand Bournon and then up the well-known Col de la Colombière. This peaks at 1,613 metres, and after that, once they're over the top, it's all downhill to the finish. And in Moutiers this morning, as the pack roll away, another star is missing, Armand de las Cuevas, who's given us some good times over this past 2.5 weeks. Well, he's now got a high temperature. He was well at the back yesterday and is not a starter this morning.
Well, talking about the temperature, the riders can expect comfortable climate again today. 25 degrees Celsius is expected in the valleys, and there should be a slight tailwind on the descent of the final climb.
And the Col du Saisy was the first challenge today. Peter de Klerk and David Cassani broke away and they climbed it together. At the top, it was de Klerk who went over just ahead of Cassani, and Vladimir Pulnikov in third place. A group of 14 riders began to dictate the pace, but they were swept up after the descent. Then it was on to the second big climb, the Col de la Croix, and Peter Ugrumov, the man who did so much yesterday when he finished second, had broken clear, and just before the summit he caught up with Moutiers-Cluses in the last 800 metres. He then led him over the top of the climb, and then the Frenchman who had chased them all the way up, Pascal Lino, he passed over the top 50 seconds down, and the man who had been in the frame for quite a way up the climb was dropping back. Eric Breukink of the Once team went over 1 minute and 54 seconds back. Richard Virenque, who is making that polka dot jersey his for sure, he was over in 5th place, 2 minutes 37 seconds down. And then it was all downhill, heading for the Grand Bournon to the start of the climb of the Col de la Colombière. And once on the climb of the Col de Colombière, Peter Ugrumov attacked indeed Moutiers-Cluses and left him straight away, and is now on a lone raid, hoping to get to the finish before the field catch him. And at the moment, it's looking good. We're about 4.5 kilometres from the summit of the Col de la Colombière, and the time checks are Cluses about to be joined by Pascal Lino around 2 minutes 25 seconds back, and the main field, and here it is, well, what's left of it, it's approximately 10 riders, being led by Marco Pantani and Miguel Indurain, Roberto Conti. They're 4 minutes 15 seconds down, Paul, and that means Ugrumov is second overall on the road right now.
Just by a couple of seconds, because he started the day 4 minutes and 13 seconds back in 6th place, 4 minutes and 13 seconds back on 2nd place in the overall standings. But this is the man now who's trying to do the damage a little bit further down the mountain here. Vladimir Pulnikov did the work. He pushed them along. He really set the pace extremely well. I think there's been a few words from the team manager of the Carrera squad between Pulnikov and Marco Pantani to sort themselves out. Pulnikov did an excellent job, and now Marco Pantani is trying to put the pressure on again to get rid of the two French riders, to get rid of Richard Virenque and Luc LeBlanc, but at the moment he hasn't actually reached the steeper part of the climb, and then he must accelerate again to try and do the damage.
As we now will go up here to the leader again. And in fact, this man showing no signs at all, Ugrumov, of slowing down on the climb today. And once he does get to the top of the Col de la Colombière, well, he's got a nice, cool 20 minutes all downhill with hardly an uphill road on it into Cluses below. And that will be a good feeling for him, and he will richly deserve the stage victory, which he was robbed of yesterday by the little Colombian Nelson Rodriguez.
But in fact, that's a very strange thing happened there. Luc LeBlanc tried to attack, and something went wrong with his bicycle straight away, because I can hear the race referee shouting for the Festina car, which I feel is in the front. In fact, Luc LeBlanc is stopped in the side of the road there, and he has a major problem with his bicycle.
So LeBlanc, and we don't know what's happened there. I don't think maybe he's jammed his gears up, Paul, but of course the Benesto team car of Indurain is going to do nothing about it. They're waiting for the arrival of Festina's team car.
Well, he managed to get going again. In fact, he's very fortunate that he managed to rectify the problem himself, because the team car is in front of him on the road at the moment with Pascal Lino, who is 3 minutes and 18 seconds behind Pietro Ugrumov. It must just be the gears jumped and he managed to put them back on. He's on the big chainring at the moment, trying to get back into contact, but he's conceding an awful lot of time.
And this is Lino passing now a very, very tired Kasputis, who started the move today and then was caught on the climb of the Croix Free by Ugrumov, and left there as well on the climb of the Col de Colombière. And so now he goes backwards and Lino continues onwards, but he's not gaining at all on this rider. We're now coming up towards the summit here of the Col de la Colombière. It gets a little bit more barren as we climb towards the top, and the crowd here have had a very nice day out today because the weather is excellent. And this rider, who's only ridden the Tour de France once before, by the way, and that was back in 1990 when he finished 45th overall, but this rider is a class performer, believe me. He won the stage of the Tour of Italy last year when he gave Indurain a real run for his money. Indurain beat him overall by less than a minute, and Ugrumov finished second. Well, the clock is on our screen, which indicates that he's about to go over the top of the climb, and then it's all downhill to Cluses. He'll take a few risks, I think, because he's not going to be robbed of a stage victory today if he has anything to do with it all. There's the banner, signifying really to the last major climb in this year's Tour de France. Although we have the mountain time trial tomorrow, Avoriaz doesn't hold any real fears, because the riders who are out of the competition will ride up it, while only the big men will have to race up it to try and make sure of a place in Paris. So this is really goodbye to the major climbs in the Alps today, and Ugrumov goes over the summit. The clock starts now, and if he's got a minute or so, and I think he's got more than that, if he's got 3 minutes on the yellow jersey, Paul, he must survive to the end. And this is the scrap going on, and again we've got an attack here. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think Luc LeBlanc has got back and gone forward and attacked, and we never saw him came back. Our cameras with the leader, but that is LeBlanc. He's anxious to get this action going because, of course, he's losing his place overall, which is 4th today. But Virenque is losing his 2nd place. Pantani is losing his 3rd place. They're all going to drop down 1 if Ugrumov holds that advantage out on the road. And Luc LeBlanc has suffered every day in the Alps too, but he's never given up. He's setting the pace again now, trying to limit the gains of Ugrumov. Pantani in a strong position, but I think, you know, his knee has given him a little bit of trouble today, because in fact he stood around at and near the front. He's tried 1 or 2 of his famous accelerations, but he hasn't shaken off anybody. But don't forget too, he's now become a heavily marked man after his ride yesterday by Indurain himself, and Indurain has paid much more attention to Pantani today than he has done until now.
I have to admit that I do feel that that crash he had yesterday did affect his form for today, because the knee was really swollen this morning. It may well have taken a little bit of the sting out of his attack. As we look down here, it looks as if they've actually swept up Pascal Lino in the last kilometre of the climb there.
So they come smoothly up to the finish of the hill, and Luc LeBlanc is sprinting up towards the banner, looking for his teammate Richard Virenque in the polka dot to come round him and take the points. I'm not sure whether Virenque can do that now, and in fact Pascal Lino just trying to limit his losses up towards that banner. He's been out in front until he was caught just now, and I should think he'll get back onto the pack as they go over the top. And Indurain himself is going to sprint up towards the summit. Richard Virenque on his wheel. I'm not sure whether Richard can actually get round Big Mig here, but he's going to have a little go as they come up to the summit, and in fact he decided not to bother. Indurain goes over the top in second place. 3:30 down is the time gap with this select little group of riders.
Well, this is Lino just coming over the top now after having been in the middle of that group for a long time. I don't think he'll have any problem getting back into contact with the leaders on the descent here, and you can see it's a very rapid descent, the first part of the Col de la Colombière, but it is a narrow corner, and it is a narrow road.
So the leaders are over the top. 3 minutes 30 seconds down was Miguel Indurain's little group on Peter Ugrumov, and now the long descent to the valley below. And will Ugrumov survive? We'll just take a quick break.
You know, the Alps are very nice and all, but let's face it, they're not Ditchling Beacon. And if you're suffering withdrawal symptoms since the Tour de France's brief appearance in Britain, you'll be relieved to know that there's a fix on the way in the next couple of weeks. Starting on Monday, the 8th of August, is the Kellogg's Tour of Britain. And although there are no final lineups yet, we do know there'll be a good selection of riders from the Tour de France on view, including a couple of yellow jersey holders and a couple of stage winners. Sean Yates will be the big home attraction, with Johan Museo, who took the yellow jersey twice, also confirmed to ride. Jans Ferrada and Bo Hamburger are the stage winners taking part, and Sean Yates' Motorola teammate Phil Anderson, who won the race last year, will be back to defend. There are 5 stages, starting much further north than the Tour de France ever got in Glasgow, and finishing 5 days later in Manchester. Final lineups, as I say, have yet to be sorted out. Greg LeMond, for example, may be riding, although we know his GAN teammate Chris Boardman definitely won't, because he's in training for the World Championships later in August. Nevertheless, the Kellogg's continues to grow in stature, and I know that the reception this race got in Britain has done a lot to persuade cycling's best that there's more to British racing than the Plimpton bypass. Coverage then starting on Monday the 8th of August, daily coverage on Channel 4. For the moment though, let's rejoin this race on the road to Cluses.
Well, thanks Gary, and it'll be marvellous to see these stars racing again on British roads next month. We're now behind Pantani here, that familiar style of his on the way down, but when our camera can get up there, I can tell you now that Miguel Indurain has gone for it on his own off the top of this mountain. He is doing a suicidal descent down here, Paul.
Well, I don't think it's quite suicidal. Miguel Indurain is a superb descender in his own right. He's up in the ranks with somebody like Sean Yates, and you see at the front here he's taking his own line around the corner. In fact, he's putting a lot of pressure onto the other riders in this group, like Richard Virenque, who's almost made contact with him there, and also Marco Pantani. But a man who will be suffering on this descent at the moment is Luc LeBlanc, who's not really a very good descender.
Well, Pantani's making a desperate rush at Indurain here to try and get on terms with him. This is a 12-mile drop off the mountain, and we run straight out into Cluses itself, where the crowd are waiting to see the race come up the main street. And Pantani trying now to get up to Miguel Indurain. And there is Richard Virenque and Indurain, first and second overall this morning in the Tour de France. But of course, Richard Virenque in danger of losing that and getting a little bit desperate about it. He's got his place on the Champs-Élysées at the end of the Tour as the King of the Mountains winner, but of course he wants to be second in the Tour de France, and he's French, and I think that would be a marvellous moment for him. So just ahead of Pantani here is Big Mig, Miguel Indurain, as news reaches us that Luc LeBlanc, chasing just behind, has punctured, and the service car trying to help him out there, but it's often a problem on these descents because the rims get so hot when the riders are braking hard and then kicking out of the corners that they're blowing their tyres now. And Pantani having a real struggle here. That's his familiar riding style. He puts his tummy on the saddle, tucks right down, and tries to get maximum speed out of that machine on the descent.
Well, this is Luc LeBlanc in the back of the field here. He's obviously got a fairly quick change off the Festina team car now, but I think probably the problem with Luc LeBlanc there was he took too many risks trying to stay in contact, and he maybe hit a stone, and then that's it, he had a flat tire. But fortunately for him, he got a very quick wheel change, and at the front of the race here, you see Marco Pantani, not one of the most aerodynamic riders in the main field, is having a great deal of difficulty trying to stay in contact with Miguel Indurain. You can just see him from there, and Richard Virenque.
Well, it's not often we ever get these pictures on the long descents of the Tour de France, and they're quite dizzy, aren't they, as we go down. 9 kilometres to go. That's a little over 5 miles to the finish.
You see Virenque here is putting the pressure on, actually working with Miguel Indurain at the moment, because he doesn't want Marco Pantani to come back, because there is still a big battle in this Tour de France for second and third place, 2 places on the podium in Paris. And you see Marco Pantani is 100 metres behind, which is why those 2 riders are working at the front.
Now we're having a look here at, I think it's Luc LeBlanc, having a quick repair. He's obviously got a number of bike problems here today.
I think the problem there was the mechanic was actually just adjusting the brake at the back. He obviously had a rear wheel change, and that's what the problem was. It was put in very quickly, not straight, so the mechanic was just adjusting the rear brake mechanism to make sure it didn't touch on the rim on this rapid descent.
Well, we're up behind Miguel Indurain here, and the latest time check coming through at 3 minutes 10 seconds. As we switch back to Luc LeBlanc, he still has a problem with that back brake, and this certainly isn't the time to have problems with your brakes on the way down the Col de la Colombière. He's already punctured once, he's had a wheel. He had a problem going up when his team car wasn't with him. They were up behind Pascal Lino, and so the neutral service tried to help him out. He's at 10 kilometres from the finish, and we're about 9 kilometres from the line with these two, but of course ahead of them by 3 minutes and 10 seconds is Piotr Ugrumov.
This is the man who's done the great ride today. After being defeated so narrowly yesterday, I didn't think he'd be able to have the energy to come back and fight, but he really has done a great job. Inside
3 kilometres for the leader on the course, Ugrumov, as Indurain now just rides a very steady race down towards the finish, and there'll be a sprint here between Virenque and Indurain. So, one-on-one. And the gap is still 3 minutes, and no more time checks. It was 3 minutes 10 the last time we had a time check from the course, and that is enough, I think, to keep Ugrumov now in 3rd place overall. He'd take the slot of Marco Pantani, who is racing just behind these two. We might catch a glimpse of him now, but in fact he's losing ground, quite a lot of ground too, over those 2 riders now, Paul.
He's lost an awful lot of ground. We could see on the first few corners of the descent he had a great deal of difficulty staying in contact. He's been joined there, as you can see. This group of 3 riders will be the Marco Pantani group. He's been joined by Fernando Escartin and Roberto Conti, but this is the man who's the man of the day, Piotr Ugrumov, in the streets here of Cluses.
And so he's got the win he so richly deserves, this man who tried yesterday with a race-long breakaway and was then beaten in the sprint. Now he's got rid of everybody today. He's done it all on his own too. He crossed to the leader, Arturas Kasputas, on his own, and then once on the lower slope of the Col de la Colombière, he broke clear, and that indeed was a great way to win the stage. The man of the Alps, with the exception possibly of Marco Pantani, but this man in 2 days has had a 2nd and now a 1st. A great win for Piotr Ugrumov, and I think the clock will tell us, of course, he's certainly going to climb up to 4th. He might even be 3rd overall by the end of the day.
Here's the 2 Festino riders, Pascal Lino and Luc LeBlanc, almost getting into contact with Marco Pantani, who I feel is just in front there where we see the team cars of the other riders.
And now we're watching out for what will be a very interesting sprint here between the yellow jersey, Miguel Indurain, and the polka dot jersey of Richard Virenque. And they've had quite a battle over these last couple of days. Indurain annoying Virenque by going for the King of the Mountains points, and then Virenque getting his own back at the finish. And Virenque at the moment having to race hard right up to the line because he doesn't want to lose his 2nd place overall in this race to Piotr Ugrumov. So seconds will count, although I think Paul is safe. He won't know that.
He won't know that because at the moment the team car from the Festina squad is a little bit further back, trying to help Luc LeBlanc, so he really doesn't know what the time gap is at the moment. He knows all he has to do, though, is to race for the line to save as much time as possible. A little flick of the wrist, and he says, come on, Miguel, please give me a hand because I'm starting to suffer here quite a bit. And this rider, Virenque, really has matured in the Tour de France this year. He's come from being a rider who was regarded as a flash in the pan when he took the yellow jersey for a day a couple of years ago, to now being a mature challenger, possibly for overall victory in the Tour de France in a couple of years' time.
Well, it's 1 kilometre to go, and it's over a minute and a half now since Ugrumov finished. And so there's approximately another minute and 20 seconds before these two get in, but that will keep Virenque happily ensconced in 2nd place. Indurain, of course, isn't too worried because the man nearest to him is right in front of him there, Richard Virenque, so he'll keep the same lead on him tonight. This is the chase down. It's Pantani at the back, who it's very, very close to him losing his third place overall.
Well, he had a tough day there on the descent there. He really couldn't stay in contact with these riders for a long time. He was just 100 meters behind them, but then he just was unable to make contact. But that is the disadvantage of being a light climber.
Now, this will be a very interesting sprint, but it looks as though Miguel Indurain has got the advantage. He's manoeuvred the young man in front of him. What a big man he is, isn't he, Miguel Indurain?
Biron was really hurting there. He was pushing himself all the way to the line, and Big Mig takes it over now.
And just look at the way he kicks to the line. He's going to put a second into Risha Varenk, I think, in this sprint finish for the line. A perfect straight line, and he'll sit up, I think, in a minute, because he knows he's got it. There it is. And he'll just cruise in for second place, 2 minutes and 39 seconds down, and Varenk gets third slot. But that's okay. Richard will keep his second place overall, as well as Indurain stays in yellow. This now is the battle, though, to see whether Ugrumov will move up into third place overall. He's got to finish within the next 20 seconds from now. If he's in 20 seconds, he will conserve third place, and the sprint has started, so it looks as though he'll be okay as Escartin comes up to the line to take the sprint. And Pantani behind him, followed by Conti. It's going to be desperately close, in fact. 23 is the time, and you know, I think indeed Pantani will drop a place and Ugrumov will climb to fourth. And when we work it all out, I think it'll be by a single second. Well, if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's what Pyotr Ugrumov did, and he won today, 2 minutes 39 seconds ahead of Miguel Indurain. Then followed Richard Varenk, Fernando Escartin and Marco Pantani. A very happy man on the winner's podium tonight, Ugrumov. His victory, his at last. The green jersey of Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov finished in a small group over 14 minutes back, but he was safe, and so too was Sean Yates. He was in a slightly larger group over 20 minutes behind. Overall, Miguel Indurain actually increased his lead by a single second. He's now 7 minutes 22 ahead of Varenk. Peter Ugrumov climbs up to third place. He just gets over the top of Pantani, and Luc LeBlanc is in fifth. On the podium, though, the man in yellow, he showed us how to descend today, and he takes a new jersey for tomorrow. So the stage is now set for a grand finale in the Alps tomorrow, the mountain time trial to Avoriaz. Miguel Indurain may feel safe, but the race for second place hotted up today. Now only 2 minutes covers the riders from second down to fifth overall. They must ride hard tomorrow. We'll bring you all of the highlights of the stage in our programme tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And not to be missed either, our competition. We'd like you, as usual, to pick the winner of Sunday's stage. This, of course, is the grand finale on the Champs-Élysées. When you think you have a name, then phone this number, 0891 44 4444, 0891 44 4444. And if you're right, the first one out of the hat will win Miguel Indurain's yellow jersey signed by him. Until tomorrow night, goodbye.